Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hello all and welcome to the EarthWorks podcast. This week I'm your host, Jack Higgins, and I'm sitting here in a sun-filled office on a beautiful winter sunny day at Fairmount Country Club, being hosted by my man, Pat Quinlan. Pat, thank you so much for having me here in your office.
Well, Jack, thanks for coming. Appreciate you coming out to Fairmount. We've known each other a long time now.
That's right.
And again, we love your products, but we love more when you come to visit and have you out on the course. And now it's winter, but first time on the podcast, big time listener. So I'm happy to be on the show.
I love that, man. That's really cool. And we've been spending some time together recently because it's winter and you got all the events. We just came back from Phoenix last week and that was a great time.
It was a great show. I thought it was very well attended. My seminars were great. I took a field trip, which was also wonderful, and always good to meet when you can, wear short sleeves in the winter and. Played a little golf. I'm not going to lie. Played a little golf.
Great. Did you play in the tournament?
I don't play in the tournament. I played with a friend of mine at Greyhawk. It was awesome. Really had a good time. And it was just good to catch up with everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a cool venue. It was interesting. There was there were things that were great about it. We were rocking and rolling at the EarthWorks booth, and I also did get other feedback of people really enjoying a lot of the talks. Some people were really, and also some interesting kind of organic focused or carbon-based focused, soil focused, biological focused sort of talks I heard about too.
I think there was a lot of that. I think even some other companies, the biologicals are definitely in the forefront now, where obviously they weren't when Joel started. He was the voodoo guy, but now, it was in the forefront out there for sure. Only maybe upstaged by all the robots that we saw. But
robots and biologicals, yeah, good call. That is it's kind of like a hashtag of the 2024.
Pretty
GIS.
Different ends of the spectrum, but you're right. Robots and biologicals for sure.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned Joel back in the day. Let's get a little kind of history on you, Pat. How long have you been at this? What's your background? And when did you first come in contact with EarthWorks as well?
So I'm from New Jersey originally. I went to the school, University of Rhode Island. My family is in the funeral business, so it might be the first son of a funeral director that you've had on the podcast.
Very, very, very possible.
So I worked with him when I was younger, and quickly realized that wasn't going to be for me.
What town is that in?
They were in Clifton.
In Clifton, right?
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but since 1896, it was in the family business. Back then, it was just a storefront because you were laid out at your home, not in an actual funeral home. That changed obviously now. So I quickly realized that wasn't going to be for me. I enjoyed playing golf with my dad. He was a member at Glen Ridge Country Club back in the day. And I worked landscape construction and I loved it. But then I kind of figured out I could do this two ways. So I decided to go to the University of Rhode Island for turf grass management. I did internships at Upper Montclair with Red Dickinson. I don't know if you remember him.
Do not.
That was a long time ago.
Long-time superintendent?
He was there for many, many years. He actually hosted LPGA, senior PGA, and regular PGA events throughout his career at Upper Montclair.
Okay.
Golf course is much different now than it was back then.
Interesting. So what years were you there? Was your first golf course?
That was my first, yeah. So that would have been in 98.
98, yeah.
Right. So then after I graduated URI, I started out in the Westchester area and quickly I had to commute from New Jersey to Westchester. Mm-hmm. That got old quick.
Mm-hmm. And expensive.
And I had a manual transmission car. Oh, man. So Fridays.
In traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not fun.
I got you.
And then I went to Essex County as an assistant. And that was probably my first experience at a high-end private club. We were doing a lot of work when I was there. There was a new superintendent at the time who's still there now, really transforming the club. We worked with Gil Hans back then, before Gil Gil.
Yeah. Wow,
you
that's
know,
great.
I always like to say we worked with him and Jim Wagner when Gil's on the bulldozer, but no Rolex on the wrist back then.
That's great.
And then moved
Gil's
over.
from Philly, right?
Yes.
He's the guy from Malvern.
Yes, correct. And I believe Jim Wagner is from the same town.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Very cool. Yeah, so they were essentially local guys doing the Jersey Turnpike commute.
Yes, correct. And that was before the Olympic course and those types of things. So then after Essex County, I moved over to Forest Hill. And met Frank Tishner, good friend of mine now.
That's right.
And taught me a lot. We didn't have a big budget, and had to kind of stretch things out, and it was frustrating coming from a high end, big budget club to a lower budgeted club was a challenge.
What year did you go to work for Frank?
2005.
Okay, so from 98 to 05, you took in a bunch of different greenkeeping styles, different places, different shops, different equipment, different gear, different irrigation. You kind of soaked all this in.
Correct.
But a lot of it was at high budget places.
The majority of it was, and then while I was at Forest Hill, I was applying for some jobs, and I applied to a 9-hole club, and I ended up getting hired there. And it happens to be right up the street from Fairmount, Madison Golf Club. It's a private 9-hole club that was built in 1896.
Nice.
Didn't start out as 9 holes, but
it was a full 18.
Nope. It was I think 7 holes originally.
Awesome.
So pretty cool
for
place.
a golf course that old, 1890. Because that you're saying the golf course was 96.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. For a place that old, it didn't really matter how many holes there were. It didn't really matter out on the links in St. Andrews, and that's how old that. I think that's the age or the year, whether it was middle 1890s for the new course, the first kind of designed golf course. But anyway, so at least the first design golf course out there, the old kind of found its own design, which is so cool. So anyway, that's old for the Americas, man, in golf. 1896 is ancient. So cool. All right. So you were at Madison for a number of years.
For
right?
10 years.
Wow.
And that was my introduction to EarthWorks. And that's, I think, where we first met was over there.
That's right.
And, we used your products, very frequently over there. And our liquids, your liquids were a little, not as many products as you have now.
That's right.
But we used the granulars for sure. And we were chatting earlier, I had a big worm problem over there.
Oh, right.
And wasn't using C3 at the time, and I don't think we...
when you started there, C3 was not out yet.
Correct. So I wish I had it back then. We don't have... so after I finished at Madison, job opportunity came available 3/4 of a mile down the road at Fairmount, where we are today. Golf course was built in the 60s by Hal Purdy.
Okay.
And my first year here, I worked alongside the longtime superintendent who had been here almost 30 years.
Wow.
He was getting ready to retire. The club was going to put in a new irrigation system.
Was the irrigation system that old as well, or it wasn't in his tenure?
He did not put it in.
Oh, wow.
So it was put in shortly before he got here.
So you're talking a 35-year-old irrigation system.
Correct.
Wow.
He did the hard part. He sold the club on it. So, but
that's a nice departing gift to the next guy.
I'll tell you what, I never got a gift that expensive before. So yeah, it was very nice. Himself and the powers that be realized maybe he shouldn't design and have all the input in a system that he wasn't going to really use or use for very long.
Okay.
Which I think says a lot about himself as well as the club. So my first year, once we got into the summer, I was strictly just working with the irrigation contractor, keeping an eye on them. We ended up going with a Rainbird system, 5-row, all HDPE pipe, 2-wire. We really love it. We've had it now 6 years. Haven't had any problems. We've made a few additions. But I quickly realized at Madison, I was on a hill. And for 10 years, I sent all the water down to Fairmount, and realized now that I'm at Fairmount, I got to deal with all that water.
Wow. So yeah, we spent this time talking about the new irrigation system, but it's the other side of water that you're concerned about.
It really is. And, irrigation, you could put a number on how much you're spending every year repairing it and labor hours, and drainage is a little bit more difficult.
You're different. You're absolutely right. It's different. It's not as cut and dry as like, we had to replace these many heads. This, we laid this pipe, we did this. It's different because there's surface drainage and there's internal drainage and there's soil friability. And they're all working together.
Exactly. So Fairmount's unique that we butt up to the Great Swamp of New Jersey. So we're not actually in the swamp, but the edges of our property are federally protected, and you're not allowed to go in there. So we do have very heavy clay soils. Mm-hmm. There's been drainage done here for eons since the course was built. And I always tell, my Greens chairman and the members that if the conversation at Fairmount's not about drainage, we're not asking the right questions.
Yeah. No. Okay. That's really interesting because that is the cog in the wheel of the maintenance at Fairmount. It sounds like.
Absolutely. I mean, we are probably a day behind or a day and a half behind other clubs in our area after a rainfall on when we could actually get back on the course. We have wall-to-wall cart paths, so we can keep the members playing.
Right.
But sometimes maintenance is a challenge.
Let's talk about the geography, topography a little bit more, just to give the listener a sense as to where we are. When we say it's the Great Swamp, this is not like a swamp like that you find like in the Delta or like down like by the shore. It's not the Meadowlands.
No.
It's not Clifton.
No.
It's actually, this is where those two main rivers in North Jersey start. They both come out of this same area. The Passaic goes north and then kind of shoots down through Essex County, Hudson County, and Passaic County, and so anyway, and then the Raritan goes down into New Brunswick,
right?
Which is really cool.
It is.
I love the area here, and this is more like the swamp on the very plateau of a mountain ridge. Really, we're really at it's more like foothills, but it is the Appalachian right here. It is that same mountain ridge, and we're at the top of it. You have beautiful hardwood all over the place. You have beautiful outcroppings of and that's kind of the mystique of this area. And your golf course kind of represents that too, but it comes with an enormous challenge of water doesn't want to leave, or it wants to leave very slowly.
Correct. We're here for the reason that we take the water from the neighborhoods around us. While we have water features on the golf course, none of it's used for irrigation. Our irrigation water comes directly out of the wells into our pipes and onto the course. Okay. So all the water features that we have are just carrying the water from the neighborhoods to the Great Swamp. So while we have to deal with it and manage it, we don't use any of it.
Oh, really interesting. So you don't draw? We
do not. We draw out of two wells, which are on the property, and it's not terrible water by a lot of standards, but it's not the greatest water.
Okay.
But all the surface water, we capture it in drains to leave the property, but we do not.
You don't have a surface drainage pond. Yeah.
Correct. No.
Yeah, it just flows through.
Yep. Yeah.
Which poses trouble because you just lose control. It's another thing that you're not controlling really. You're kind of you're the bypass.
Correct. So while tons of drainage was done, all over the place, when we did the irrigation system, we had to use over 1,000 4-inch couplers to repair all the drainage that we went through. If that gives you an idea of how many drains are out here.
Wow.
But what we did 3 years ago, we started doing internal drainage in the greens, and almost more importantly, we started doing internal drainage in the fairways.
Okay. So everything is old push-up, and it's existing soil.
Yes.
So your internal drainage in the greens, were they an XGD style?
Correct.
Okay.
So we did not have. We have one USGA green that had drains. None of the other 17, 18 greens had drains.
Just surface.
Just surface. And they were heavy with thatch, and so we got on a good programs, good aeration program. We reduced fertility tremendously compared to what was done previously. We do weekly tissue testing, istric testing, really just to get a handle on everything that was going on here and put numbers on it.
Yep.
And then as we started to get better, the next step was the internal drainage with XGD. Greens and approaches came out great, and I really struggled to push, but the club finally agreed to do 4 acres of fairways.
Oh, I love this.
And my pro came out and hugged me and said it was the best money the club ever spent. Our pro's been here for over 25 years. And the members quickly realized that this is a program we have to get on.
Now, how many acres of fairways do you have?
We have 8 acres completed right now.
Okay, 8 acres completed. Okay, and how many total acres do you have?
We have 30 total acres of fairways.
Okay.
And the difference, I would say, with us versus other clubs is most clubs might only have 8 acres that don't drain well.
Right.
We probably have 24 of the 30 acres that don't drain well.
So you see yourself doing that, at least that much?
Yearly. So the club has committed a significant amount of resources to the internal drainage on the fairways because they see the instant benefit along with the top dressing on the fairways and the other stuff that we're doing. But the biggest impact, the biggest bang for the buck has been the drainage.
So just for my edification, walk me through like what the process is in determining the first 4 acres to do and the next 4 acres, but then also laying out that system, like and you're working with a contractor that's drawing that grid, or how does that work?
So we select the fairways, and the first 4 acres that we did were fairways that we were losing turf on quite frequently.
Okay.
Heavy rain events, not draining, puddling,
clay areas.
Everything we're taking out is clay. Everything that
right.
we're taking out. So we contacted with XGD, and they came in and they set the grid. So they scan the fairways, and normally they go on 10-foot centers on fairways. We had them go on 8-foot centers.
Cool.
So on the first 4 acres, I believe we put in something like 16,000 feet of pipe.
Wow.
And we use a 6-2-2 mix on top of that all the way to the surface. XGD strips the sod and then puts the sod back. There's another process to save some money where you just fill it to the top and you let the grass creep over.
Okay.
Our members weren't going to be happy with that process. So, we had to use the more expensive process, but it's amazing the difference and how much water comes out of those pipes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was it hard to find output like for this area, or?
No, we're lucky because of all the drainage that was done previously. All that was catch basins with 4 or 6 inch pipe leaving, the fairway area or the property. So really, we were able to utilize all the existing drainage to tie in this really,
State of the art.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And really, the hardest sell was the first 4 acres, and now the members ask, which holes are we doing next?
Yeah, how can we speed this up, because it's awesome.
They love it.
That's great, dude.
Yeah.
So thankfully you keyed in on knowing what superintendents before you also knew, and so you've built on this infrastructure but now have just really made it as great, stepped it up. Like probably in the 60s, who would have thought that they would have great internal drainage on 8-foot centers?
I wish Hal Purdy was still alive just to see, what we're able to do with his greens and drain them, and it's great. I mean, and the greens are obviously doing much better. They're much firmer now. We have a good greens program, but the real issue was the fairways, and that's what we're focusing on now.
Now, are you POA in the fairways? Are you? I imagine you're POA bent on greens, but maybe you're more bent. I don't remember.
We have. I would say we're probably 80-20 bent on fairways, but it's old Pencross bent, real thick blade, real gnarly stuff. Like, you know,
I like it.
Yeah, it's good. So that gives its own challenges, especially versus a lot of the new varieties.
Right. It's the thing, like you're saying, it's just not. It's not a fine leaf texture. It's old coarse blade, but it creeps and crawls very well. It's resilient, and that's probably why you have so much of it.
Right, yeah. No one's ever said Pencross is a fine leaf bent. No way. But I think it also thrives in wet areas.
Okay.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I've never had that much bentgrass, newer varieties in such a wet area, so I don't know how they would do. But Pencross definitely thrives, so much so that now we're looking at trying to eradicating it from the rough. It's definitely migrated from where it was planted in the 60s for sure.
Okay, interesting. So you're gonna slow roll that and nip at it, or you're gonna cut it out, or what? A little of both.
Well, I guess that kind of leads us into we're gonna be doing a bunker project.
Oh, dude,
it was
right.
approved by the members a few weeks ago. Robert McNeil from the Northeast Golf Company in Rhode Island is our architect. It's who they've used for many years. Phenomenal guy.
Awesome.
Superintendent's architect for sure. Really good guy. It came up for the first time. He looked at the golf course as a whole. They always had him come in and look at this hole or that hole or this area or that area. For the first time, really since the golf course was built, all the bunkers are going to be touched at one time.
Wow.
And again, going back to the drainage,
that ties in
huge.
It's got to.
We spend a tremendous amount of man hours. The bunkers fill with water. We have no liners. So we're going from, the 1970 Pinto, we're going up to the Ferrari now with Capcon liners, great sand, new drainage, turf type tall fescue around, fine fescue areas.
Fine fescue lips, sort of.
Not
thing?
lips,
Okay.
but we've started some fine fescue areas on the course.
Backside of the bunker.
Yes,
look?
we're still trying to keep it out of play. Just we are cognizant we're a busy private club.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to slow down the rounds.
Got it.
But we need that texture out there that we don't have right now.
Awesome.
So we've done some work currently, and the members now have bought into it. And they're excited.
How do you establish fine fescue? Is that a sod? Or is that a
everything
seed?
we've done has been sodded only because it's been on banking, mounding, where it would have been difficult to get seed to establish. And because we were new in the fescue acceptance by the members, I didn't want to have it looking
ratty
for the first 2 years.
That's why I ask, because it just is so slow from seed, and you're servicing a membership, right? So, yeah, and you're a sales guy. You're selling jobs.
I'm trying to. I think we did pretty good with the drainage and the bunkers and the fescue. The membership is great. I mean, they really are. I think they're very happy with what we're doing. Communication is huge. We do update them very frequently on what's going on, and try to include. We have a great greens committee with a blend of all different ends of the golf course: women, high handicap, low handicap, older, younger.
How many people sit on this group?
13.
Okay,
including the pro, and it's really a good group. And we've hashed out some things that they didn't agree with and some tree removals. And then after the fact, I think everyone realized, that was the right decision. And, the golf course is really, it just keeps getting better and better every year. And, it's fun to see that. A little daunting the first couple of years because, I felt like we should be here and maybe we weren't. And I think now, my assistants are great and, we're really getting to where we need to be.
Yeah, and it's so many different slices of the pie that need to come together for that to work. I know, so it's awesome that you're able to fit. We throw some attention at each little thing, and now it's all starting to work as a good system, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and going back to the bent grass in the rough, all the bunkering will be stripped out and replaced. We started playing around with tenacity last year in some really heavy bent grass rough areas to try to figure out how it could work for us to spray the primary rough. And I think pretty well. We're going to play around with it again this year. 2 reasons. One, I want to try to keep the new tall fescue clean after it's installed, and I'd like to start chipping away at eradicating it from the rough.
Okay.
Primary rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So, so all this is happening when? Like, when's the bunker starting?
So we were fortunate enough that we have LeBar Golf. They're going to be coming in the day after Labor Day this year.
Wow. Which is a great time to do golf course projects, right? Like
it is.
It's in the culture of golf, of at least golf in this area. Like it's airification day, right?
Exactly.
Like it's in the culture of doing greenkeeping work.
It is. Thankfully, our project, I mean, LeBar is very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Though they said they'll be done by Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Which is great.
How many bunkers are we talking about?
67.
Okay.
And 2 tee complexes and a couple big drainage installs, pipes.
Okay, cool.
But Fairmount gets so wet in the winter that we would struggle to get the equipment around. So if we were doing a larger project that would go through the entire winter, the additional sod that we would need for repair would probably be pretty extensive.
Wow, so smart, dude. Like you have to do it at that time of year. It's maybe the only time of year you can do it.
Pretty much. And then the hard sell was to ask the members to give up
fall golf.
Yeah. So couple challenges. We got to move our club championship into the summer, where it's usually in the fall.
Will the golf course be shut down?
We'll always be able to give the members 9 holes.
That's cool.
Hopefully more than that. So our goal is probably to close 4 or 5 holes at a time. That might. So what we did, we guaranteed them you could have 9 holes.
Okay.
Might not be in order. It might be 4 holes here and 4 holes over there. But
you're going to do the best you can.
And I think we can handle it.
Yeah.
We're lucky that we're not doing any greens.
For sure.
Tees, we might have to make a little temporary area for them to use. But the bunkers, really, once they're done, they're playable.
It's turnkey. This project is turnkey. You're right. You're not growing in any new turf. You're like a lot of rough sod.
Rough sod, but at that time of year, we'll have roots in 10 days.
Oh yeah, you're gonna stitch it down.
We're fine. It'll be a challenge because you're still, we're still maintaining grass. It's still September is still warm, and we have a lot of trees.
Yes.
Not by choice, but we have a lot of trees. So that cleanup will, all the fall jobs are going to continue, even though we'll have full rate construction going at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it will be busy. You'll have a busy couple of months there. For sure.
I told my wife I'll see her at Thanksgiving.
It's kind of.
I won't be around for 3 months.
But it's a relautely short stretch. Like
it is.
That'll fly by. And
I'm very excited to work with the LeBar company.
It's great.
I talked to local guys here that have used them, and it's going to be. I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, they do great work. It's tell me turf type again. You mentioned the fine fescue in the back.
So fine fescue in areas, turf type tall. The fairways, like I said, are 80% pen cross. We're going to stay with an older variety on tees.
How much of that the fairways will be disrupted in this? Will you be,
a little bit of fairway expansion here and there.
And you'll be laying new bentgrass varieties at that point? Or?
We're probably going to use pen trio. Just so that it matches closer.
Mm-hmm.
We have 007 on some tees that we've built. And on a tee, you don't really notice it because it's
right.
separate.
It's a separate thing.
But if we have a straight line, which we're going to have on some fairways where we do expansions, the pen trio matches better. And
100%.
We're not trying to match 007 somewhere else, so we're going to stick with the pen trio. On the new tees, we will go with 007.
I mean, I'm a Penn Stater, so like I just. And I know it's kind of goofy at this point, but it's a cool old grass, the Penn Cross. And the Penn Trio gets a lot of that kind of genetics. They crawl. They creep and crawl, man. They do move.
It moves. I mean, you have some disease issues you got to worry about.
Right. Which is what? Brown patch?
And dollar spot.
Brown patch and dollar spot.
Especially compared to the newer varieties of Ben.
Right.
But we're also subject to what the sod supplier grows.
There you go.
We're not doing enough where we could contract grow a large, 10 acres or 15 acres of bed, we're not going to be buying that much. So we're at the mercy of what the sod growers grow.
Cool, man. Cool. That's great. Oh, this is fun. So let's talk sand, because I know that's and kind of more educate me, because I know that it's something to talk about. I know that shape and feel and how it packs and the whole thing.
So first thing, sand is really, really expensive. It doesn't matter what you buy.
And we're in Jersey.
We are.
We have a lot of sand.
We do, but it's not what people want.
Okay, got it.
So what we did,
Because that's what, too fluffy?
yeah, it's more for top dressing than it is for bunkers.
Okay.
In our area, South Jersey. So there's other choices. I mean, there's a lot of choices, but what we did was the Golf Pro plays every Thursday in Pro-Ams around the state. I said, listen, check out these bunkers when you go play here, there. And I knew what the budget was, and there's sands out of Ohio that are spectacular. And some courses are using them here. They're very, very expensive.
Is that what comes out of best?
Best sand and Pro Angle.
Okay. And so do they offer sands that are good for top dressing and good for bunkers and good for construction? Do they offer
They offer everything.
Okay.
But in our area, we have good top dressing sand. We have good mix, that we can get from suppliers locally.
Right.
But the bunker sand is what the courses in this area want from those two suppliers.
Okay, now the top dressing sand and the sand that would fit the specification on a mix, they have similar aspects.
They
right?
do.
Okay.
They do. It's just what you're mixing with the mix. Whether it's peat, if you're going 622, there's some soil in there.
That's right.
So we have some great blenders in our area that make great products. So all that
and that's
stuff,
where they get a lot of Renovate Plus and Ecolite and Myco as a starter fertilizer, that sort of thing in those sort of construction mixes.
Absolutely.
So okay, but you obviously want those to drain and to be aerated. Whereas bunker sand, we're kind of talking about something different, right?
Talking about more angular sand, you want it to pack, but not to get too hard. You also don't want it to move during heavy rains. The biggest thing I learned is that these sands, depending on what liner you choose, act differently.
Oh, okay.
So two other podcasters from North Jersey that you had on earlier this year, we were over and went to play North Jersey Country Club.
Nice. Oh,
and
yeah. Dan
the sand that they chose was VFB Buff.
Okay.
Which Danny also had at his previous club.
Right.
At his previous club, that sand was not on a liner.
It was just on the native soil?
Correct, and he hated it. So we played at North Jersey. I found most of their bunkers. They don't have a lot, but I found most of them. I loved it. And I said to the members, I said, what do you think of this sand? They said, if we could have this at Fairmount, we'd be thrilled. Turns out it's the same sand that Dan had at his last job.
Okay. Except
it's on CapCon.
Okay.
So right away, the bell went off. It was in our price range.
Awesome.
So we decided on the VFB Buff on CapCon, and I think it's going to be spectacular for us.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Because they also have similar situation. I don't know that they hold the water the same way you do, but they sit up high. They're on like a plateau on the ridge. Water could find areas and stay.
Absolutely, especially some of their lower holes. They're definitely more elevated than we are. But as far as the bunker goes, I mean, you're making a pit in the ground.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. I'd heard that the sands act differently, and you see it on the paperwork. But when you see it in the real world, and you talk to a good friend of mine who says, I had it where I used to work and hated it, and now I love it because of the liner.
Awesome. So I wonder what the physics are there, but it has something to do with maybe perch water table sort of situation.
Percolation rate,
okay.
How it packs, how it impacts, how it sits on native soil versus how it sits on these different liners. And I was even told it acts differently on, say, Better Billy Bunker than it does on CapCon, which you would think are similar, but they're not with how the sand reacts to them.
And you're fortunate that you get to play these different places, and you're smart. I mean, and that you've sent other stakeholders to do the same work. and investigate so that everyone's on the same page.
I mean, it matters more what the members think because they're the ones that are playing from it every
It's
day.
their place.
And obviously respect our pro tremendously. You know, he's the best guy going. You know, he's not high maintenance. And you know, he agrees. He said, if you could afford this is what we'd love to have at Fairmount. And I said, well, it works.
Awesome.
It works out for the budget. It works out for, you know, the members are going to be happy, and maintenance wise, I think we'll be fine.
All right, that's great, dude. That's great. So okay, and now what? Now play here. What will you expect? What will be the experience like? How? So let's jump forward to say next spring, because by this time next year you'll be starting to open.
It'll be all done.
Yeah.
I think the great thing is the sand will have all winter to sit with the freeze and thaw, rain, snow. We all know that 6 months or so after you do those bunkers, they're going to stay somewhat softer.
Okay.
We've told the members that. We'll remind them of it next spring, but we're going to switch to hand raking versus a bunker machine. We should have a lot less washouts to worry about.
Yeah, so you're saving the labor there.
Well, we're moving the labor from fixing washouts and pumping bunkers to creating a better daily
Playing surface.
surface for the members.
Awesome.
So I'm excited about that. I think the members are excited that all the bunkers are going to be consistent. So the bunkers have probably all been worked on at some point in the last 25 years, but never at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So none of them are the same.
Mm-hmm.
The architecture, even though it's the same architect, different contractors in-house, they don't look the same either.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone's excited that it's going to look like one continual vision all the way around the golf course.
And is that big flashes? Is it more flat bottom?
It's more elegant, so it's you know, kind of straight edged bunkers, not super flashed up, but not flat bottom. So you know, your ball will roll down. You'll have fair lies. You know, not crazy fingering into the bunkers, but you know, nice but broad, high shouldering.
Ooh, cool.
You know, because we're flat. We're very, very flat here. So if you don't have those shoulders to kind of pop out of the ground, and you add the texture with the fine fescue, you wouldn't have. It would just be a flat piece of land.
Oh, that's really awesome. Yeah, and you're right. You can build so much character into the golf course doing it that way. Yeah. So that's really great news. You're gonna love it.
Very excited. I think my crew's excited. My assistants are. Even the architect. He was so excited to finally be able to get to look at the property as a whole, which was really cool.
Now, what time of year do the 4 acres of fairway drains?
So those we do in the spring.
Okay.
So we'll be starting in March, weather permitting. Pipe actually shows up Friday, so that'll be done with before the bar comes in, and then we'll go again next.
How long does it take to do 4 acres?
So the company that we're using now, Turf Rehab, is our crews that used to work for XGD and have left for whatever reasons. They don't use a tractor.
Okay.
So they still use a hand trencher, even though it's fairway work.
Wow.
So it's slower.
Okay.
But they're awesome. They're spectacular. They're a local group. The crew that we get is local, so they sleep in their own beds every night. So they're happy when they get here in the morning.
That's nice.
So we could do about an acre a week.
Well, what I like about what I heard there is that, and what I remember about what I heard is that obviously wet soil is a major concern, and the different times of year you're doing it. Now you're saying March, and the place holds a lot of water. You take big tractors out onto the fairways, you're gonna have ruts. You're gonna have a lot of fixing to do.
It's very true, and not on purpose, but by using the company that we're using with the smaller equipment, workmen's, plywood, hand trenchers, we had minimal damage, and we worked some areas. We had standing water while they started. Every trench filled with water while they were working.
Wow.
And literally, as they got to the end,
just gushing.
It was spectacular.
Just coming out the bottom.
So, and what's nice about that time of the year is a lot of our members aren't back from Florida or Arizona. So we still have play, but we're not we're not impacting that many members when we have to close a hole. So it's well before Memorial Day, well before even the real start of the golf season, middle of April.
Yeah, it's that you said acre a week, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. So thereabouts, a month of that, maybe you call it 5 weeks, 6 weeks,
Right.
and you're good. Oh, that's awesome, dude. And like each thing that you've mentioned now, you talk about kind of spending the extra or doing the extra effort to make it turnkey, to make it like member ready when the project's done. You're fortunate that these two things, you have that option. You're growing in new greens, you don't really have that option, but you're doing things in the way that you put the sod right back on top of the drainage, and boom, you're ready to play.
The members love it. The bunker project, there'll be more inconvenience than anything else that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Even the irrigation, the main line installation, you're out in the rough. We didn't have to close any holes.
Mm-hmm.
We closed a half a hole or a hole while we were doing laterals, but very minimal impact with the irrigation, and we've been able to do the same with the drainage. The bunkers, but I think they also see what the end result's going to be. We purchased a drone, so we're going to update the members with a drone. While they can't see what's going on, we can show them through social media. So I think we're doing the right things to keep the members engaged throughout the project, especially for the first 4 or 5 holes that they're not going to see until they're done. What goes into it, how much is involved, and what the end result is.
Awesome. So let's talk about communication. You mentioned the drone, and let's talk about your team. Who's flying the drone?
Well, we have to learn.
Okay.
Whether it's me or one of my assistants, that'll probably be who's doing it. We're gonna do some test flies before we, hit anybody with it. But we're just getting used to it. It's gonna be new for us to do that. But I've seen what other places have done.
Josh Saunders does this very well. You know my buddy Josh at Lancaster?
I do, not personally, but
you see
through social
some of his
media
work?
I do.
Yeah,
and
he throws it out there.
I see what James does at North Jersey.
Yeah, James does this very well.
I'm sure we'll beg him to come over and give us some pointers. But I think that's the type of stuff you have to do, especially with the younger members. They want to be at their desk in New York City and look at Instagram and see, wow, they're working on the bunkers on 12. This is awesome. Yeah. And then
you do all that. Who does the work on social media? Do you take that charge?
So right now it's just my personal social media that I put a lot of golf course.
Because I see your stuff and it's great.
Right. So what we're gonna do, especially the clubhouse, is gonna be doing a renovation the same time as the bunkers.
Okay.
So I think now we're gonna kick gears. The pro shop kind of has a social media account. So right now we're spread out, and I think our general manager is gonna bring everything under one roof. And one account, so we can show golf course, events, food and beverage, as well as projects.
Awesome, dude.
So that's the end goal. We're at the 50-yard line right now.
Yeah, all this takes a lot of work. All of it's a lot of work. Communication's a lot of work, but it's exactly what is going to, it's exactly what takes it to the next level. And you're right, the membership expects it. Our generation expects it. We're ready for this.
Right. And the members, the older members, they are involved. I mean, I'm friends with them on social media.
Oh, big time.
More so than I probably give them credit for.
Boomers can do this, no problem.
Absolutely,
dude.
absolutely.
In fact, they probably do it the best. They're early adapters. They've had to adapt, and they keep adapting.
They did. I think COVID drove some of that. When they couldn't leave the house, they figured some of this stuff out. But the younger members, I think, demand it, and I think that's the difference. I think everyone appreciates it, but the younger members demand it now.
So how many rounds a year are you doing here now?
We're about 23,000, which
and that's a lot.
It is. I listen to some people on the podcast that are at public courses, and I don't know how they can keep grass alive.
Like our buddy O'Malley.
O'Malley is a hero in my book.
45, 46, something crazy.
And I mean, the place looks like a private club. I mean, it's hats off to him.
He does do a remarkable job. Remarkable, and it's a cool property. I mean, it's like, it's cool, but every place has its challenges, and also how tight do the 23,000 come? And how rough is it on the golf course, and when essentially none of the fairways drain, it's getting better and better, but that can be really rough on the golf course.
It is. I mean, they have an expectation. They're paying a lot of money to be here, but the members are paying a lot of money to be here, but the player that's at that county course or at that daily fee course, that round is still a lot of money for that person.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think, listen, I think what these guys can do at these lower budgeted courses or municipal courses, their resourcefulness is just, it's inspiring. And I think I've learned a lot from, we get spoiled on what we can do. We have Mondays sometimes without outings.
Right.
I mean, I think Brian would trip over his own feet if he had a Monday that he could have to himself out there.
Wow. Good point.
So I think it's a bigger challenge what they have. We do have our own challenges. We have the same client every day.
Yes.
So
that is a different
You
challenge.
might have that client 4 times a year. I have that client 4 times a week.
It is a different challenge.
And the expectations, I think, are a little bit different.
Yeah. So great point. So anyway, that rounds went up this club has been evolving to be more active. Would you say?
We were, like every other club, extremely busy during COVID, like we've never seen. And we were always a fairly busy club for private clubs in New Jersey. This past year, we're on the train line to Wall Street, where we are in Chatham. A lot of the bigger companies have requested that people are back in the office.
Okay.
So Tuesday through Thursday, downtick. Friday, a downtick, but still busier than we were pre-COVID. And the weekends, it's actually come down a little bit because our membership has gotten younger.
Right.
And the kids have sports.
Yeah, that's right.
So all in all, more rounds certain days, less round other days, and it balances out about that 23,000, 24,000 range.
But like you said, it's still the members. It's still their club. They want to be here as much as they possibly can, and when they're not here, they want to be keyed in. Tell me about the great project that's happening. Show me the progress. Can't wait for this event. All that sort of thing.
Exactly, giving them that little insight when they're not at their club. And one of the biggest things we added paddleball.
Cool.
5 years ago, with a new pool complex, a new amazing pool house that's a separate clubhouse, restaurant, bar, simulators. We're a 12-month-a-year club now.
Yeah, awesome.
And that, I think, makes it an easier sell to a client, a member, a customer. It's not just 9 months a year. You're not going to have to play golf in the winter if you don't want to. We have paddleball. We have simulators. You can play golf in the winter, but we have these other amenities, and that has really allowed us to keep up with all the other clubs in the area.
Who's also been on the podcast recently is our man Wayne Jackson. And Wayne's over here too, right?
Yes, Wayne's been here a few years. Started during COVID.
Now, for the listener, if you remember, Wayne is like horticulturalist for hire, essentially, but like with a vision. He's got like he always brings like some design elements and a lot of vision and a lot of knowledge.
His plant knowledge is awesome, and it shouldn't be a second job for us, but it is.
Right, and it is for a lot of places.
And during COVID, we cut our staff, and we're trying to maintain the golf course, and falling behind, especially that COVID year. And I met his brother at a New Jersey superintendent's event.
Oh, cool.
And I went to the club and said, what if we brought in an outside contractor to 1 day a week to kind of take care of stuff that we're losing out on that really needs to be better. And they were all on board, and we brought Wayne in. So 1 day a week, he brings his crew. He focuses on bed maintenance, prunings. He treats our roses, things like that. Fertilization of plant material, not grass.
Right.
We still do all the mowing and weed whacking and all that.
Oh, yeah. That's not what he does.
No. And most importantly, he does our pots.
Well, that's kind of where that's why I brought it up, is because he does, you mentioned this 12-month-a-year sort of club and like this place that want to set an atmosphere, when people are there. So I imagine a lot of those pots and planters are up near this paddle tennis and up near.
So we keep them on the pool side at that clubhouse, and then
Okay.
as soon as the pool season ends, we move them up to paddle on the other side of the building.
Cool.
Because that's when paddle's starting.
Awesome.
And the women love it.
Awesome.
Especially the women.
Yeah.
The comments we got the first year that we used Wayne, I mean, they could care less about the golf course, the majority of them.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's not that's not what they're
the
in it for.
emails and the calls and the comments about the pots.
Yo.
Like, I always did it myself, and I did a mediocre job.
Okay, it's nice to be honest.
He's times 10.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
The members love it. He does them all through the season, starting in the spring, summer, fall, and even winter down where paddle is.
Yeah.
And it's been an absolute home run. And then just last year, he started doing the interior plantscaping for us in both
Yes.
clubhouses.
Awesome.
And I mean, orchids and all the stuff in the different locker rooms and out on the bars. And it's been a really good addition to bring the level of the club where it needs to be.
Yeah, talk about, like a difference maker for the atmosphere, because on the podcast when I was with him before Christmas, he gave me 2 plants when I left. So and I already had house plants, but now I have 2 more beautiful ones, and I think I've bought 2 more since then. In these winter months, and I keep pointing at the windows here because you have a really nice office, dude.
I do.
Yeah, and with really well placed windows that let in a lot of light, and on sunny days in the winter, the sun's so low in the sky as it is, it floods these rooms, and when you have green tissue there, you just it sparkles. It really sets a difference in the room.
The difference, especially in their other clubhouse, we didn't have very much plant material at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a new modern building. And I think the only negative to it is it's extremely loud.
Okay.
There's not a lot of fabric to absorb sound.
Okay, good point.
So adding greenery and this plant material, it's still loud, but it's softened things, and it feels a little bit more comfortable.
Awesome.
And then he moved up to the big clubhouse, and the work he's done in there, we always had plants, but not to the level that he brought it to.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
The positivity, the reports back from the members have been very, very positive.
Good. Yeah, sounds like you got a lot going on here. Let's see. I feel like we've covered a lot, but I want to see if there's anything more. because I know you and I have had some cool conversations about state of the industry sort of thing, and we're also high on coming back from the GIS, which was a good time.
Listen, I think labor's better than it was. It's still a problem.
Okay.
I think assistants are finally making the money that they probably should have been making years ago.
Oh yeah, we talked about that at the expo. I think
the negative is if guys' budgets aren't prepared for that. But I think for the hours that we work and the assistants work, I think finally now they're making the money that they should have been making a long time ago.
You should be able to pay a mortgage and have a kid as an assistant, right?
I agree.
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
The mentality of work 3 years and you're out and you got to go somewhere else, I think, has gone by the wayside. I think
it doesn't make sense.
It does. Back in the 90s, I think it did, because there was a golf course a day being built.
Right.
Not the case now.
No.
So I'm happy to see that. I really am. Labor's better. I think the robots are an interesting concept because
it's already starting to take in a lot of places.
I'm surprised how many.
The Husqvarna units are all
everywhere.
over the place.
I didn't realize how many people in New Jersey already had them.
And in New York, they're out on Long Island a lot.
Yeah.
And my distributor out there sells them. Okay. And I think he told me 15 more courses this winter. Went something like that.
Yeah.
So
I think that's going to be a big help. And I think the guys I've spoken to that have them at their course, the members have really embraced it.
And how, remind me, they're taking care of maybe a couple acres at any given place?
It sounds
usually?
to me the majority of them have them on their short game areas.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at them for wet, rough areas that we can't always get heavier mowers on. So I think they're here to stay. And
Definitely.
I think they're going to get better and better as time goes on.
Did you see the company that with the retrofit your fairway unit? What's
I did.
up there? What? First of all, do you remember the name of the company?
Bright, BRIGHT.
Okay.
So besides that, they'll use your own equipment and make it autonomous and things like that. Their cost structure, they charge you by the hours that you use the machine.
Right.
There's no upfront cost.
Which is fascinating.
Well, there's two ways you could look at this. You might not have to put it in your capital budget. You can put it in your operating budget as a laborer.
Absolutely.
So guys that are, cash strapped in capital, but have labor available and might not be able to find people.
I mean, everybody, whether you're running a household or running a business, capital investment is the concern. We can work it out on the monthly budget, but capital investment is the concern.
So when they said that, I said, "Wow, that's a phenomenal concept." I think it's very interesting. I don't know if I want to be the first guy to have it,
right?
But you have a steering wheel in your office. So like for us, we have holes across the street. So my comment was, well, how do I get my mowers to cross the street? They'll stop at the sidewalk. I would take over on the steering wheel, drive them across the street, and then they would continue autonomously over there.
Yes, and the same thing would happen if there was a rock in the fairway, a stick, a branch down, it would flash a warning, beep, beep, beep. Maybe you'd get the notification on your phone or in the office, and then you go to the simulator essentially, but with computer screens in front of you, where you're then seeing where the unit is.
There's live cameras on the machine that you can move on the screen, so you could actually see what is it, a stick? Is it what is it? Or are there cars coming? Can I cross the road? It's like a little Formula One simulator in your office.
Daytona.
So the irrigation computer might have to move so I can put the simulator in, but just a completely different concept than anything we've seen previously.
Okay, so American company or you're
Canadian.
Canadian.
Okay. So they have it running in Canada. They have it it can go on anything. It can go on a range picker cart. It can go on fairway mowers. It can go.
Range picker seems obvious, right?
To me, that was the bell that went off in my head.
Yeah.
Because now we're starting to pay bagroom guys a pretty good wage to pick the range. Man, if you could have a robot doing it, that bagroom guy could be front of the house, helping members instead of picking the range.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I also found it so awesome, and I don't know if this Canadian company Bright had some knowledge going into this, that they were going to be the talk of the show in the same venue where the other talk of the town are these goofy Waymo taxi cabs, driverless Ubers that were driving around Phoenix, right?
Those scared me a little bit, but a lot of guys were in them, and so a lot of videos on social media.
I didn't go in. I took a video of my friend Marissa, Marissa from Vista Seed. So she was, I videoed her because it was the night it was raining. Were you there Thursday?
Thursday night.
Yeah. They were all so excited, all the locals, that it was raining.
Yeah, they don't see it much.
No. So anyway, she's running out, and it was her first time doing this, and she's standing in the rain, not realizing that you have to unlock the car from the outside via the app. So she's like, it's not opening, and then got in it. Then I guess you have to press another button to get it to start, and the whole thing. But
I believe our friend Mike Weber was in one and did not put his seatbelt on, and a voice comes over and tells you have to put your seatbelt on.
Oh, interesting.
So what the Bright gentleman told me was their engineer left to be the engineer for Waymo.
No way.
That's what they told me.
So maybe they did know that they were going to be unveiling this in the same town.
It's pretty interesting stuff. I mean, the difference with autonomy and robots from Orlando to Phoenix in 12 months, I thought was 200%.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah.
It really has kind of, and I guess it's a number of different ways entry points now. It's not just one company, one entry point, like one style, one this. Like the small little like razor blade Husqvarna units are like a whole different sort of approach.
I spoke with the Husqvarna people, and they had no concept how big golf was going to be for them in Orlando last year.
Oh wow!
And now I think their booth was as big as the USGA's booth.
Oh wow!
I mean, it was, but that's how fast it's moving. And then obviously this Bright company was just a completely different way of thinking. And listen, that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we got to think differently if we're going to survive with what we're doing, and whether that's chemically, nutrients, equipment, labor. If we stay status quo, we're not going to make it.
Yeah, interesting. So before we wrap up, I mean, we didn't really talk much like fertility, soil, but you did say like the other key thing that you heard at the show was like a lot of talk about biologicals, and I would say like a soils approach, like is what I saw. And that's I heard 2 or 3 people tell me they really enjoyed Dr. Henry's talk. I don't know if you heard that. It was Gerald Henry. He's from University of Georgia.
Okay.
And he gave a talk about like I think resiliency and just kind of managing wear. So anyway, but it was very much soil focused.
But I think if you think back to the Turf Expo in Atlantic City in December,
right?
Dr. Down at Rutgers, he's working on not getting rid of fungicides, but how can we add biologicals to a lower rate of fungicide to get as good or better disease management?
Yes.
And I think that's on the same page as healthier soil, less chemical input, better product.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think you guys have been doing that for years, but not looking at it in combination with fungicide and what that does to the soil.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think, you look at now, possibly a reduction in Daconil use.
Yeah. It's going to happen. And I am happy. And that is a totally unique thing to hear that they're saying, like, you got to tie it together. And one has to come down for the other to get better.
Correct. And I'm glad that it doesn't sound like our hand's going to be forced or taking things away from us. So I think if they reduce what we can use, and the professors and the researchers can figure out we could add some biologicals to get the same response that we were getting with higher rates previously.
Okay, great. It's
a
a
home
win-win
run for everybody.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Yes.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
right. And especially the consumer, like because the golf course will keep getting better.
Absolutely, and we have to be mindful of what we're doing in the environment. And I think if you look back 20 years to what we're doing today, just look at the rates of the products that we apply now. I mean,
radically different.
Oh, radically less.
We're still young guys in this,
right.
like but you do have a 20 year perspective.
Yeah.
So you can say that like with fully knowing like look,
Mercury was still available when I started.
Yeah, you were still
you
didn't use it a lot, but it would not be unheard of to use it once or twice a year.
People still had it. And now I just think you look at the use rates, they're just so much lower. Look at the packaging. The packaging is so much smaller because we're using less. And I just think it's safer for the environment. We know more. Research is key. Without research, we're never going to get to where we have to be.
Right. But like building good soils and using these properties as the buffers and carbon sequesters that they are, like to really be to let these pieces of property work as they should, with active plant life, active soil life, so that when we do use inputs, they can be complexed and buffered by like a rich soil environment. And that's something like, look at here, like you're saying, you have water that passes through that then gets to the Great Swamp and then moves throughout the rest of the state. Like, so it's forefront in mind.
Absolutely. We check the phosphorus levels from where the water enters the property and where the water leaves. And while it's extremely high where it enters the property, AKA homeowners.
Yes.
It's tenfold less when it leaves the property.
I love hearing
but
that.
Still high. So we still do get those algae blooms. But we're doing a better. If we weren't here, that would be going directly into the Great
You'll
Swamp.
get more and more, man. You're like it will keep building more and more that your buffer system here. You know, like because your drainage will actually be, now that you have more aerobic soil and less anaerobic soil, you'll be able to humify better, you know, so you'll be building topsoil more humus so that you'll then be just filtering and sucking even more of those contaminants, all those solutes.
Oxygen's the secret.
Yeah, dude,
Whether it's aeration or drainage, but that's the secret.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. That anaerobic to aerobic thing, it's everything.
Pore space.
Yeah, it's everything. And it sounds like you've been on top of that right from the start here.
We're trying.
Well, like you said, that's kind of the tag of this show, right? Like if we're not talking about drainage, then we're not talking about the right thing.
That's it. It's not the right conversation if we're not talking about drainage.
Wow. So cool, dude. Hey, this was a great talk.
Jack, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Patrick. Yeah,
awesome.
This was fun. All right. Thank you, listeners. Check into the EarthWorks podcast on Spotify and Apple and anywhere else. Also, get on to the EarthWorks YouTube channel because we do great clips. And if you're a follower there, then you get the reels and everything like that. You should be looking for reels and everything on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, all that good stuff. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks again, Jack.
All right. You got it.